What's up, everyone? It's Seth again from Radio Wave, and this is the second in my video series about the basics of music royalties. In this video, I'm going to talk about music publishing royalties, and this will be the first of two parts about music publishing royalties because even at this summary level, there's a lot to cover, and want to make sure the video isn't too long. Okay, so going to get into it. The first question that we should ask is, what is music publishing? And it's a great question because it's the question that most people don't really have the answer to. That's artists, that's music executives. It's a confusing topic, and music publishing is a little bit more complicated than any other kind of aspect of the music business. The simple definition of music publishing is the ownership and monetization of the copyright of a piece of music or a song. And I say piece of music because it doesn't have to be a finished song, or it can be something like a score. But if you create that song, that musical work, you're the copyright owner, at least initially. So that's what ownership means. You're owning the copyright of the song. And the copyright is the intellectual property of a creative work. So again, if you created the work and you're like, okay, here's the song, then you are the owner. But you could also create a work for somebody else, like say somebody pays you in a work for hire situation to write a song and record it. They can say, hey, I'll give you this money, you give me the rights, and you agree. Or in the case of a lot of artists and songwriters these days who have extensive catalogs, a lot of them are selling their ownership, their copyright in those songs to music publishing companies or to song management funds in exchange for a heck of a lot of money. So in those cases, even though they're the creators, they are not the copyright owners. And if you want a more detailed explanation of copyright or definitions according to the U.S. government, you can go on their website, and they have a lot of great information that's easy to comprehend. Copyright ownership of a song, if you're the owner, the publisher, you get certain rights, and I'll explain sort of what those rights mean in a little bit, but those rights are: you have the right to make or reproduce copies of the song, distribute copies of the song, sell them, stream them, make new or derivative works based on the original song. And a derivative work is something like a sample that's used in another song. There's other derivative work kind of situations as well, but that's probably the one that most people would understand right away. Publicly perform a song and display lyrics. Displaying lyrics, not that common, but if you wanted to, say, print up a T-shirt with lyrics, if you're the copyright owner, you can give someone permission to do that, or you can do it yourself. A copyright owner or a publisher can be a person or an entity. So you, as a songwriter, wrote a song, you can be the publisher, or there could be an entity like a music publishing company or the aforementioned song management fund that is the copyright owner. So if you are a songwriter, in order to create a copyright to a song you wrote, you do not have to register it with the U.S. Copyright Office. As soon as it's created, technically you're the copyright owner. If you're an independent artist and you're just kind of starting out or writing songs for yourself, you may not want to go through the expense of registering every song with the Copyright Office unless you feel that those songs will be stolen by somebody and somebody else will claim credit for them or use them without your permission. If you have a copyright with the U.S. Copyright Office, it's kind of cut and dried. Hey, this song was registered at this date, so it's not yours. But again, probably not necessary to do unless you're a professional songwriter that's constantly pitching songs to other artists, or you're a well-known artist, or obviously if you are a music publisher or you own copyrights to other people's work, then yes, those should be registered with the Copyright Office. Okay, what elements of music are considered part of a song for publishing purposes? Kind of what are we talking about when we talk about music publishing in a song? So, traditionally, music and lyrics are the elements of a song for publishing purposes. Um, and sort of in the early days of music publishing, I kind of mentioned this in the first video when I was talking about Tin Pan Alley and mechanical royalties and player pianos. So, sort of in the time before there were recordings and recording artists, there were music publishers and songwriters. And at that time, songs were considered melody and lyrics because, again, there were no real recordings of songs or very rudimentary ones. So basically, someone wrote a song, they wrote the melody, wrote the lyrics, and somebody transcribed those into sheet music, and that sheet music was sold and that was the song. Nowadays, melody and lyrics are considered the top line of a song. So if you hear someone refer to a songwriter as a top liner, there's somebody who writes melody and lyrics. They're not writing kind of tracks or things that would be considered rhythm, things like that. And that brings us to how things in music publishing changed and songwriting changed, and that really kind of happened with the advent of the popularity of rap and electronic music in the late 80s and 90s. Obviously, those genres were around prior to that, but in the early days of recordings of rap songs, particularly, they were using samples. They were using tracks, and those samples and tracks were instrumental and integral to the song itself. It wasn't necessarily about the melody of the song. I mean, the lyrics were important, but the melody wasn't as important as that track. And that at that point, people started thinking, well, this is actually part of music publishing. This should be part of the song. Which previous to that, when you're talking about, say, classic rock or country or R&B or crooners or pop music, a producer was somebody who went into the studio with a live band or singers and created this sonic bed that was recorded with these live instruments and basically formed the song and shaped the song, but they weren't necessarily writing the song. They didn't come in with the melody and lyrics. I mean, sometimes they did, obviously, but most of the time, no. They were just somebody who was like, hey, we have this song. It's in a rough demo form. Make it sound great. So when you had tracks being sort of like integral to the songs, that sort of changed the game when it came to publishing, and that part of the recording or part of the musical work as well kind of became considered music publishing and songwriting. Okay, going back to those rights that a copyright owner has, how are they implemented? Reproduction is recording a song or creating copies of sheet music for a song. Distribution, again, selling or streaming or allowing a song to be sold or streamed. Public performance is performing a song live or allowing a recorded version of the song to be performed like on the radio or music in a TV show or film. Derivative work, again, those samples that we talked about, but also things like foreign language versions of a song. So if you wrote a song lyrically in English and somebody wanted to record it in German, then they would need to get your permission to do that. Along with samples, also if someone wants to use some of your lyrics in another song or a melody, which obviously there's been a lot of lawsuits about these types of things, but if you can prove that, hey, this melody is something that is unique to my song, and when used in a way that's unique to my original recording, then they have to get your permission to use that melody or those lyrics. Again, display lyrics we talked about. Allow those to be printed on some kind of object like a T-shirt. And again, these rights are everything you get as a copyright owner, and they can be limited as well, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Before I get into that, this slide is really just about, the refresher on the types of music publishing royalties, performance royalties, and mechanical royalties, which I covered in my first video, the basics of music royalties part 1, and go check that out at the 9:54 mark. I give you a pretty detailed explanation about these two types of royalties. So, how are these rights that a copyright owner has limited? The first way is sometimes they're limited just by government mandate. We have in this country the public broadcasting system, public radio, public TV. So if they want to license your music, the government says they can do it at a reduced rate. And as the copyright owner, you have to agree to that. You can't really negotiate that or not allow them to use the music at those reduced rates. The big one is the compulsory mechanical license for selling a recording. And this basically means that once, you say you wrote the song, you released it on a CD or a download or to a streaming service, it's considered publicly performed. Once this happens, then anybody else can make a recording of that song as long as they pay what's called a compulsory mechanical license. And this is a license that's a statutory rate. It's set by the government, by an entity called the Copyright Royalty Board. So the current rate is 12.4 cents per song recording. So that means basically if I wrote a song and I released it on an album and you heard it and you're like, hey, I love that song. I want to release that song on my album. I'm going to do a version of it. You would have to get this compulsory mechanical license. And how do you do that? Well, a couple different ways. If you're self-releasing and you want to press up CDs, you have to go to an agency called Harry Fox, which issues mechanical licenses. So you kind of have to prepay that. So if you go to, say, disc makers to press up CDs, and they're going to ask you a question, are there any cover songs on this album? And if you say yes, then they're going to require you to get that mechanical license from Harry Fox. Not every publisher and writer is registered with Harry Fox, so if it's someone who's not, you're going to have to go to them individually, but that's rare that that's the case. So anyway, you pay that money up front. So if you press up 100 copies, you pay 12.4 cents times 100. If you press up 1,000 copies, it's times 1,000. Streaming's a little bit different, but similar. So if you have, say, a distribution deal or a situation with TuneCore or DistroKid, if you go on their website and you're trying to release a cover song, they're going to charge you an upfront fee for that license. So basically they'll say, hey, pay us, I don't know, $50 or $25 for each cover song, and we'll grant you that license for a certain period of time, like a year or something, and we'll take care of all the paperwork and licensing. You don't have to worry about it. You just got to pay us. But when it comes to the physical copies or digital downloads, it kind of works differently than it does with streaming. For digital downloads and physical, the songwriters and publishers of a song are paid collectively 12.4 cents every time that song is sold. And that 12.4 cents is, again, shared collectively between all the writers and publishers on the song. So say there's a song that has 4 writers and 4 publishers, and a download is sold. Those 4 writers and 4 publishers split that 12.4 cents. They're not each getting 12.4 cents for the sale. They're splitting it. So, and that can get kind of extreme, particularly with rap music. For example, Sicko Mode by Travis Scott has 30 writers and 15 or 16 publishers. So if a download of that song is sold, they're splitting 12.4 cents, which is obviously a minuscule amount. A compulsory mechanical license also exists for on-demand streaming. It's a little bit different, but basically it gives on-demand streamers like Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Music, basically the right to stream any song if the copyright owner gave permission for it to be recorded. So I wrote a song, I recorded it, and I released it. That's my permission. And then also, if the owner of the recording allowed it to be uploaded to the on-demand streaming service. So say I am an artist signed to a label, I recorded the song, um, so I've given my permission for it to be recorded, and my label then says, hey, we want to obviously distribute this, so we're going to allow it to be uploaded to Spotify and Apple, etc. So they've given their permission. So once those two things are done, again, that's the license is set, and anybody who wants to do a cover version of that song has to go through the channels to pay the fees, but then they can do it. You can't stop them from recording the song. Another limitation is not governmental, but imposed by your co-writers or co-publishers if you have them on songs. So say you wrote a song with someone else, and there's a TV show that wants to use your song, and they say, hey, we want to use your song, we're going to pay you $5,000 to use your song, and you're like, that's great. And your co-writer says, you know what, I want 10,000. I don't agree. So unless they give us 10,000, I'm not going to allow it. Then the song can't be used. So basically, anybody involved in a song needs to give permission for that use. If it's not a statutory use that's basically mandated by these compulsory licenses. And same goes for that sort of lyric example. Say you wrote a song and some company wanted to use your lyrics in an advertising campaign, and you're like, great, I wrote the lyrics, I agree, but your co-writer just wrote the music to the song and it's like, you know what, I don't agree with what that company's doing, or I want more money. Even though your co-writer didn't write the lyrics, they can deny the use if they don't give permission. So the lyrics and the music can't be separated for any use. Even though someone just wants to use the lyrics, it doesn't matter. It's considered a whole work. So all the owners of that work need to agree to the use. If you want more detailed information on this, I highly suggest that you pick up a copy of All You Need to Know About the Music Business by Donald Passman. It's in its 10th edition now, might be the 11th by now. But I recommend it for any artist or any aspiring music executive because it has all kinds of information on copyrights and publishing and sound recording and contracts. Really, really valuable information in there. All right, that's the end of part A. In part B, I'm going to talk about the difference between publishers and publishing administrators, writer's share of publishing versus publisher's share of publishing, performance royalty rates, and a breakdown of publishing royalties for on-demand streaming. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And again, I also consult for artists, so I've helped a lot of artists collect royalties, find royalty streams, help them with contracts, with marketing, with shows, with all kinds of stuff. So if you have a project you want someone involved with, love to talk to you about that as well. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you watch the next video, and I will be signing off now. See you soon.